Oh, hello there. Because today, well, actually, 7 days ago, the person that made Marvel died. So I kind of felt like I should talk about superhero movies. I mean, I would have talked about it on his birthday, but nah. So let's jump right into this. So superhero movies, they're interesting. Well, some of them anyway. Superhero movies are the likes of Marvel, DC Comics, and a few other companies. But mainly you'd see ones from like Marvel, like Spider-Man, Superman, but that's DC, Batman, Aquaman, like any hero that you see from the early 90s or even today. But first we're going to start with who created it. So today we're going to be talking about Stan Lee, or should I say Stanley Martin Liebert, I think. I'm pretty sure that's his name. So let's jump right into it. So who is Stan Lee? Stan Lee, in his early time when he was born around December 28th, 1922, he was a young boy who grew up around New York, and he lived with his parents. He used to have siblings. It was his brother, but he almost had a sister, but unfortunately she died at birth. As he grew up, he did a few jobs, such as delivering newspapers, working at, delivering food, working at a few, markets, and being a newspaper boy. And over time, he kind of grew interest to the works of certain comics made by people he liked at the time. One of which was a person named Errol Flynn. I'm pretty sure I'm butchering that name. But Stan Lee really loved his work, like a lot. Over the years when he grew up, he started writing comics and starting thinking about superheroes. Of course, some of them were the likes of Spider-Man or Superman, but mainly at the time people would mainly know him for the Amazing Spider-Man. When he grew up and he graduated at the age of 16, because he finished high school early, he decided to work at a company that was called Tim Lee Comics, and eventually it will be turned into the industry that we love, well, most of us anyway, today, Marvel. When it comes to Marvel, it was mainly focused around characters that were not fully developed, but mainly had backstories, whether their parents got killed, they lived through a traumatic event, got enslaved, or something traumatic, like Spider-Man or Superman. Like Superman, he was technically an alien, but not really, because he protected his planet. And Thor, he is human, but he wasn't born on Earth. He was born on Asgard, I believe it was. And Thor, he's technically human, but kind of. Like most characters are human, but they weren't born on Earth. But some were, but they developed powers over time. That's how Hulk came to be, and not Iron Man, because he developed the suit himself, but he's kind of a hero in sort of a way. But Stan Lee didn't just focus on those characters. He worked on things like the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and a few other things that people don't really talk about nowadays, which is kind of understandable because they were old school. And not only that, but they were also in comic strip form, and not really many people read comics nowadays. It's mostly like television, media, that sort of thing. 'Cause back then they didn't have that. They handwrit every strip. They would always go over it. They would plan their ideas, and that's actually what Stan Lee did when he started working for Tim Lee Comics. Eventually, over time, he would become kind of the co-producer of the company. And then eventually, as he got famous, he started winning awards for like best publisher, best like idea maker, that sort of thing. I didn't really focus on much of that because I don't know. I not exactly fully into the history because over time he mainly made more comics and he started thinking, hey, maybe I should make my own company and start making movies and media. And so he did. Eventually, around 2003, he, you know, worked off. Then we had all these films like Hulk, Thor, The Amazing Spider-Man, Aquaman, Superman, Batman, mainly Batman, beforehand, and a whole bunch of superheroes that people would grow to like. Over the time, though, Stan Lee did get older, and eventually he died of pneumonia. And, well, because of that, we all appreciated his likes. But why was he so important? Why did people so much care about him? I mean, I would care, but still, though, why was he so cared about? What was so important about what he did? Well, let's jump right into that as well. Why was he so important? So the reason he was so important was because he was literally the inspiration for all the things that we have today. I mean, not technology, of course, but all of the superhero movies we have: Black Panther, Venom, Aquaman. I keep mentioning Spider-Man because mainly people loved Spider-Man. Along with that, there was also other things like Black Widow, Infinity War, Doctor Strange, all of it. Of course, there were other likes like Wolverine, X-Men, Deadpool. I mean, those weren't technically Marvel. They were just kind of like inspired by the likes of it. But Stan Lee inspired, made, and developed all those characters. He was the reason we have all those comics. He has the reason because we have all that merch and the fandom itself. Ugh. And other sidekick characters, and even then how we have TV shows like Teen Titans Go and the Teen Titans Go movie. But besides all of that, he's accomplished a lot in his lifetime. He's done really good work for himself. And even then, for someone like me who isn't in part of the business at all and isn't really a comic maker, like I still find that pretty cool because I didn't even know who he was at first. And then when I started watching, well, a little more Marvel movies, I kind of got an idea of who he was. And then when I found out that he died, I was like, oh, uh, oof. Because he really was an inspiration to all, that, like, everybody, pretty much. Everyone in their childhood. I wasn't a superhero person, but I did find it a pretty cool concept. I mean, again, I wasn't a superhero fanatic or collector, but I still find it pretty cool and pretty amazing that that concept has became a mainstream idea for people developing characters and movies being filmed and made. Like, it's really cool how one person can make such a big difference in this world, and that's the beauty of living because everyone can cause something, whether it be good, whether it be bad, but mainly the good. Like, we start something. Like Bill Gates, he was the reason that we have phones, and Stan Lee is the reason we have superhero movies, and, well, many other Renaissance people back in the early days. They would be the reason that we have art, that we have architecture, that we have wheels, that we have transportation. Everyone made a big difference somehow. They either made it or they contributed their ideas to it. And, well, if someone hasn't done anything yet, they can always find it eventually. Whether they make ideas, they contribute, or they just are one of those people who help out, regardless of the situation. We all play a part, and Stan Lee did play his part very well for his long lifetime. So, with that being said, let's jump into my final thoughts about it. So overall, like I said, I wasn't a superhero fanatic, but I did like some superhero movies like Venom, Black Panther, and, well, Deadpool. I mean, Deadpool was pretty funny, and pretty cool overall. I wasn't a Superman person or Batman fan for that all. Not even Spider-Man or Thor or Hulk or Black Widow or... I mean, some of the movies were interesting, but it's because for me the superhero concept was new, but at the same time I was like, let me guess, the person has a love interest, then they have to fight for that person, then they cause a great war, and then they have to fight to get that person back, and then there's a final showdown with dramatic music, and then they finally get the girl. Or if not, then they probably just like save the world or save the planet. You know, the typical hero stuff. But with some movies, they didn't do exactly that. They did it like saving their population, which is a little less stretch from saving the universe, like Infinity War, because, well, almost everyone on that planet died. But regardless of that, superhero movies were kind of good. I mean, what Venom had was, you know, comedy, and it had a character that was, at the first you didn't like him, but he was kind of funny, and then you had the parasite, and then you had the villain who was kind of a douchebag, and you had Black Panther. Like, he experimented with something new on that, and even then how each movie contributed into a big movie. And who knows, maybe when the last movie of Marvel comes out, maybe we'll get our answers, or at the very least have some remembrance that, hey, Stan Lee, even though he passed before like this franchise was, you know, over, he still was a great man. He played a big role in most of our lives in childhood, like almost everyone else, like technology, books, art. But we all know that he's somewhere up there, happy, smiling. He's proud of what he made. I mean, sure, some people took advantage of him, or people hated him, or people see him as racist and accuse him of all these things when he's died. Like, and people profit off his death. Like, that's just that just shows how much our human species has grown toxic and, frankly, empathetic. But I hope the franchise, if it ever continues, you know, still has a place in his heart. And hopefully he's proud of his work, which he should be, because he was a big inspiration to all the movies that you'll see eventually, or the movies that are coming out. But overall, superhero movies, they're good. Marvel, it was a big part in most of people's lives, and Stan Lee, he was a man who did great things. But that's all I have to say. So, yeah, thanks. Thanks for watching. Ciao.